Andretti's bid to enter F1 is seemingly stuck with the FOM, and while they are running out of arguments as to why the American company is not a good fit for the sport, the F1 teams have made sure to remind the newcomers that they do not like to share the huge pie on 11 pieces. Ferrari has been the last team to give Andretti a fair warning about their potential entrance into the sport, and when you have one of the most successful teams on the grid talking about this, then the situation could easily get out of control. With this in mind, will F1 follow the trend of the ever-growing sport in the USA and grant Andretti what they've been wanting for so long? Or is this the beginning of the end for the American company? It goes without saying that Andretti has been one of the most persistent bidders to enter the sport across multiple channels, trying with buyouts first, as all things should be done in this sport. However, after all of the teams turned the cold shoulder to Andretti, they figured out that the only way to enter F1 is with their own team, something that has been greeted with a lot of positivity by the FIA, but quite the polar opposite feeling from F1 and the team principals. The main issue that they have with Andretti is the fact that the F1 teams would have to give up a huge slice of the pie to an 11th team that is yet to prove they have any value to the sport, a question that has been brought up by Toto Wolff and Guenther Steiner. It's really interesting that Steiner, the team boss of Haas, is bringing this question up because it was his team that went without scoring any points in 2021 and still managed to survive in F1, finishing last in 2023 as well. But with Andretti threatening to grab the massive attention of the American investors and the American public, which is something Haas was supposed to do, it's quite obvious that the already existing American team is looking at the potential newcomer as a huge threat to their existence. Andretti has vowed to pay the dilution fund, one that has been estimated at around $200 million, in order to neutralize the damage that his entrance into the sport will have. And on top of that, the financial moves he's been making left and right are something that proves the American investors are here to stay. We've also seen Red Bull make a collaboration with Ford to badge their engines from 2026 onwards. So these American investors are not going to be exclusive to Andretti, even though he'll have the upper hand as the home businessman in the negotiations. Nonetheless, these talks are all reserved for a future time, one in which Andretti will enter the sport and will compete with two American drivers, as the first one is already confirmed to be Colton Herta. Nonetheless, this is not something that has been given to Andretti yet, and the latest one to stand against this situation is Frédéric Vasseur, the team principal of Ferrari. According to the Frenchman, who spoke his mind ahead of the Concord Agreement talks, the sport is not learning from the past, and they have been kind of blinded by all the short-term financial opportunities of the potential investors. There have been lots of talks that the growth of F1 has hit its peak in 2022, and that from this point onward, the value of the sport is only going to go down, which is why rumours about Toto Wolff selling his stakes at Mercedes and Lawrence Stroll thinking about a potential departure from F1 have been circulating much more than usual. If this is to be believed, then Andretti's entrance is going to bring nothing more than two cars that will need a lot of time to compete up front, and will likely be backmarkers for the majority of their existence, something that has been pointed out by the team bosses, not me. And there is, of course, the cost cap that Vasseur believes will be a massive hurdle for Andretti to overcome, because as a newcomer to the sport, he would likely have to spend a massive amount of money in order to understand how this business is done. This is something that Andretti has already committed to, though, building a $350 million facility in Indianapolis that would house all of the racing projects of his company. So it's not like the teams could argue with his financial and technical commitment. The F1 teams are now struggling to increase their pace and performance with already running financial and engineering structures set in place, and for a new team to come in this financial and technical era of the sport, it would definitely cause an uprise in the entire sport, as the fans and investors will be kind of hesitant to pay attention to a motorsport racing category that has been paying a lot of attention to unplanned expansion. Elaborating on this, Vasseur went on to say, It doesn't matter the format, the organisation and the rules. At the end of the day, if you are 11 teams, you are more exposed than if you are 10. When you are in a positive situation and the business is going up, I think everybody is positive and optimistic, but I'm not sure that it will stay like this forever. We have to really pay attention. On one hand, we are moving to increase the costs at every single meeting. We put inflation into the cost cap, we change the index for the inflation, and we increase the capex. And now we want to dilute more the incomes. It's not easy also to run a business and to do forecasts when you have this kind of change so often. And honestly, we are not learning from the past, and this is a big issue. Now, the issue that F1 has is not really that much with an 11th team coming and taking a huge slice of the pie. It's the fact that the sport might not be financially stable now to nurture an 11th team that would come with huge financial support nonetheless. But there comes a time when you need to ask yourself whether or not the sport has indeed become too greedy for the money, and whether or not there will be a stoppage of what is currently going on with the expansion of F1 in America to show that there's still a lot that they have to achieve. But will this mission receive a halt from Andretti's bid? It's very obvious that the team principals and the FOM have a bit of a biased view here, because had it not been for the USA market, we wouldn't be looking at the revenue numbers we are right now. That is something everybody inside the financial world of Formula One knows, but they're just too afraid to admit it publicly, because if all things come down to it, America does deserve its own team to race and cheer for in Formula One. The sport has a huge lead over NASCAR and IndyCar right now that they are not allowed to drop, but in case they do, they might revert back to the old times where the USA continent has been quite the unreachable market for F1, with Austin being the only race that the sport visited for quite some time. James Fowles, the team principal of Williams, has also spoken about the sustainability of the sport if Andretti manages to enter it as the 11th independent team, saying, "It's not that there is not room for an 11th team, it's just we have to be financially stable to do so. I appreciate we're increasing things, but we are getting ourselves towards financial stability for the first time in forever, really. Let's get to that point and see where we are." So it's not actually against an 11th team whatsoever at all, and I think Concord should reflect that. Let's grow at a point where we can grow. I'm not sure that's today. Not all of the team bosses, however, have a negative stance towards Andretti's entrance. Zach Brown, who has a very close relationship with Andretti, has been quite a vocal supporter in the past couple of days when it comes to this very controversial topic, saying that the team principals and the FOM may not understand the financial injection Andretti is going to bring to the sport, one that can be shared by all sides and not just by his own team. McLaren's team boss said that he would be much happier to have an 11th, much bigger piece of the pie than a smaller 10th piece as he is having right now. So be that as it may, there will be a lot of talking points in the Concord Agreement. But one thing is for sure, the FOM and the F1 team principals are going to do everything that's in their power to stop Andretti from achieving his dream. What do you think about the team boss's statements? Let us know in the comments below.